Welcome back.
I feel like we just got through in here.
I was finishing with Keely, and it was like, oh, okay.
I'm so sorry about that feeling. Welcome back to the main cabin. Feel free to move about as you need to. Yeah, this is a new feature for me on Teams. So sorry you all had to be my first guinea pig, but would anybody like to chime in on what if something they learned or they had an aha moment in their group?
I had a nice conversation with Hani about holding, like how to hold space for ourselves and others. And I think there was something that Sarah said last week about how you can't always leave your emotions at the door, and um, that oftentimes it benefits almost like a corporate type of like higher ups, like when you kind of abandon like yourself, especially when it comes to like this line of work where we are putting our hearts like out there and like holding that space. And so for me, I guess like our conversation just reminded me of like that grace and that we extend also has to come within, and we have to also like be connected to that heart, because otherwise it's harder to connect to others.
That's very good. Anybody else?
Zumzum and I were talking, well, Zumzum mentioned it, and then I kind of like was thinking about and talking through it with her, but talking about like acknowledging differences or diversity on teams rather than I kind of shared that I feel like coming from my culture, like white people tend to be like, oh, we're just gonna like ignore any sort of differences because that seems more comfortable. And we were talking about how that's can like shoot yourself in the foot, or like how that's like one, it's insulting, but then also like I feel like an effective team acknowledges any sort of differences. It could be working style or culturally, whatever that may be, and then like talks about it, acknowledges it, works with that. Like if someone is better with written communication, like how then maybe you handle that side of things, like kind of acknowledging it more. And then sometimes I'll definitely mute myself to let you talk more, because you were saying some really great stuff at the end when we got pulled back. But I don't know, I just again wanted to like highlight that like Samsung had a really great starting point with that, and I'm definitely gonna be thinking about that more and more now.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I was just basically talking about, being seen. A lot of times, my culture or based on my, religion background, we're not being seen a lot. So in a culture, teams being able to be seen and like, feeling connected with other people's, culture, just, learning about their culture, their backgrounds, that's just very important overall, just being seen. That's what I kind of mentioned to Keely.
That's pretty awesome. I agree with that. I think what comes up for me with that, if I can tack something on, is that a lot of times, as a young woman, I didn't feel seen, in culture, and so having to go out into the work world and want need to be seen by whether it's your team or your manager or other people or whatever, can be really really hard, and so you have to grow into being seen and confident enough to be seen and allow other people to see your uniqueness, your genius. That's a really vulnerable place to be, so I totally agree with that. Anyone else before we move forward?
Something Reza said I think really resonated with me is like it's good that we have a diverse team, because then we all have different perspectives, whether like culturally or just even like differences in like ages and experiences, and kind of seeing how things have like progressed over the years. I think that that's like a really good thing, and we could really like lean in to that and like learn from each other instead of kind of, I think like it was mentioned earlier, instead of like being like, oh, that's not how I work or that's not how I operate. It's like, okay, well, like learning the different perspectives could make us more well-rounded, and I think it helps the communities that we serve if we do have different perspectives.
So true. And I so agree with that. Thank you for sharing that out. Um, Something that I really learned working at REWA is noting um, and even admiring sometimes other people's perspectives, and it really expands you as a person. If you're open to that growth, if you're open to it, it can really expand you. And it's something that you don't have to go get a master's degree, for. You can just be open to hearing out other people's perspectives and learn and grow and evolve that way too. So that is so true. Thank you for sharing that. All right, let's keep going here because I know we're on a time frame. And again, thank you all for that grace. I'm so excited for you to meet Arifa. She is an amazing person. So um, as I was researching this, of course, I had to dig into one of my favorite coaches and thought leaders, which is Brene Brown. And she talks quite a bit about armored leadership and daring leadership. And so I wanted to share a little bit of that, some definitions around that for us, so we can have an understanding of what that looks like on a team. So, armored teams or armored leadership is when we engage in armored behavior to protect ourselves when we feel anxious or backed into a corner. These behaviors are signs that we're acting from a place of fear, scarcity, or lack rather than curiosity, compassion, or a sense of self worth. And so, when I think about armored leadership, I think about the many times I was coming up in corporate America and how you really did have to go to work armored because it wasn't like it is today when, I first started out 10, 20 years ago. We did have to leave our emotions at the door. There was no space for that. There was no room for that. A wellness minute in a meeting? What? What is that? You might have gotten um, referred to some therapy and or fired. It just wasn't the way. And it is now, and I'm glad things that have changed for the better. But a lot of those behaviors, those armored behaviors, come from you bringing in your own kind of way of being on top of whether you're in corporate or whether you're in a nonprofit, having to fit in versus add in. So that is what she describes as armored teams or armored leadership, excuse me. Daring teams and what they look like. Daring behavior is when we show up courageously, open, curious, compassionate, and ready to try. And here's the one that I really love: fail. Like if you're on a team, nobody ever says it out loud, but you're going to fail. Sometimes you're going to have those days where you just don't get it right, right? You get it wrong, but it's how you determine that you're going to learn from that, how you determine that you're going to bounce back, or how you determine that you're going to sit with what that feels like if you haven't been allowed the grace to fail before in life, in a position, on a team, in your community. A lot of people, that was not factored into their adulthood. So they don't understand how to fail forward. I teach that to my kids quite a bit. You can fail. It's okay to fail. Fail forward, right? What did you learn from this? What can you take away? So that's huge to being daring on a team, is saying, hey, I messed up, or hey, I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to be open and move forward in that. So to ready to try, fail. And she says that teams can slide based on the day, the situation, or the trigger. An example she uses is, I didn't have a great day today, but that does not mean that I am not brave or courageous. And so, again, the armor she refers to is the behavior we engage in to protect ourselves when we feel anxious or backed into a corner. And these behaviors are signs that we're acting from a place of fear, scarcity, or lack, rather than curiosity, compassion, or a sense of self-worth, which I think is really big because it makes you check where you are, right? If you're if you're in your armor versus being daring, you're going to know right away. And it helps you to check yourself. It helps you to take a step back and say, okay, man, I have this armor on and I might not understand altogether why, but I know I need to take a step back and figure this out so that I'm best for me first and foremost, and then I'm best for my team. So that's armored versus daring leadership and teams. And here's a quote by her that I really, really love. None of us are either armored leaders or daring leaders. We're all somewhere on the continuum between the two. And the thought that I had about that is we all have variables working in our own personal and professional lives. And it's important for us to remember those variables to pinpoint where we are on that continuum. Variables that I thought about when doing this is variables to be aware of, um, so that you hold self-compassion and accountability for yourself, are your level of training. Maybe you just didn't know that you didn't know. Your experience, my experience is going to be different from a lot of you all's experience, just on the simple fact that I'm older, right? And I came from a different environment as far as corporate America. I grew up in the Midwest versus Seattle, where things are generally more strict, if you will, versus more open in Seattle. Your experience, the passion that you have for your position, your awareness or lack thereof of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Your personality is going to be a big part of where you are on the continuum. Your mental wellness, your race, or your privilege. So these are things that I just wanted to point out when you think about where you are on the continuum of armored and daring. So take those things plus whatever you think of, because we're whole beings, we are whole people, and it's not just to say, oh, I'm going to show myself all this self-compassion and not hold myself accountable, because those two work hand in hand, so that you have a sense of wholeness around who you are, as whether you're on a team or whether you're a leader. Let's see here. All right. Some golden rings that I thought ring true for any healthy team. And this is really, really small, so I'm gonna pull this closer. Some of the golden rings for me, and maybe they are for you too. If you can think of anything else that rings true to you that a team absolutely needs, kind of what we did just before, go ahead and pop it in the chat. Psychological safety, fostering an environment where every team member feels valued, respected, and empowered to voice their thoughts and ideas without fear of judgment or repercussion. Self-awareness, recognizing the importance of self-awareness and where each member commits to understanding their strengths, weaknesses, and biases, and strive for continuous improvement. And I think that's really important. And it's not really mentioned in any of the team trainings that I've ever taken. But to be a good team member and to be a good leader, you really need to be self-aware, not just of your weaknesses, but of your strengths as well. So you can know how to navigate situations and know what your blind spots are. Maturity, where you uphold the principles of maturity in your actions, decisions, and interactions. This means taking responsibility for our words, deeds, and demonstrating emotional resilience in the face of adversity, and prioritizing the greater good over personal agendas. And it can be easy to do that. I want my way on a team. And we've all been there. But the key is keeping always in mind that it's a team. And so while you might not always get what you want or get your way, a healthy team should be an environment where you can share what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what your ideas are. And in taking that in consideration, you should be able to be heard, and voice whatever it is that you're thinking about. Honesty and integrity. Integrity is the cornerstone of healthy team culture. So conducting yourself with honesty, transparency, and ethical integrity in all aspects of work. And remember that with flexibility comes responsibility. That makes me think of REWA in general. We have a lot of flexibility in our schedules, in, if we need time off, if we, just need a day, a mental wellness day. I never heard of anybody say mental wellness 4 years ago when I first started working here. And not that much even after COVID hit. But it's a real thing. And sometimes you will need a mental wellness day. And I think it's really important to appreciate the flexibility, but also understand that with that comes responsibility. Communicating, I think that was Taylor, communicating, hey, I'm not doing well today. And not to everyone, but to me, manager, whoever, is that person. And I need this day for myself. I have time. I'm all caught up and I need to take this day for myself is a good thing. So remember, with flexibility comes responsibility. Innovation, embracing a culture of thought leadership. It's really, really important to a healthy team that you're able to share your research, share your thoughts, share what you're learning outside of work and how it could positively affect what's going on in work. I know a lot of my experience from my past has impacted innovation in the way that I do things. When I first came on board in this position, um, no shade to anyone else, but I just didn't know where anything was. um, Nothing had a congruency. Um, I had to meet contract monitors that I'd never met before and just kind of jump off into the deep end. And I think that's just because there were things happening before I even got here, which happens in all corporations. But it's not the most fun place to be. So um I really stepped out in faith and said, hey, here's some ideas that I have, and here's what I can bring to the table. Um, a sense of order to everything. And I just started pounding out and doing things that felt honorable and made sense to me. And it happened to help the department as a whole congeal. Um, and so innovation, where creativity and experimentation are celebrated as catalysts for progress, which is why I'm so huge on collaboration. And it can seem like sometimes, oh my gosh, do we need to hear all these perspectives? But I think that, when you're making big decisions, I think that you do. So you can get a feel for where everybody is and for how they feel. One of the big mistakes that I made taking this position is also what I just mentioned, coming in and having to fix so many things so that they kind of fit how I flow. I didn't get a real opportunity to learn people like I take the time to do now. And so when you're thrown into something, you don't always have the ability to do that, but you should take the time. If you're coming into a new position, whether it's a new team or new management position, take the time to get to know those around you, systems and processes, perspectives, how people work, is going to be really important to all stages of your career. But really, if you're coming into a leadership position or a management position, that's going to be really important. So just a little bunny trail there. So next we have other golden rings. Execution, excellence is a commitment to turning vision into reality with precision and efficiency, setting clear objectives, prioritizing tasks effectively, and then holding yourself accountable for delivering those results. I know sometimes you can kind of get um, bopped around with different things on your schedule, and that's okay. It happens to me all the time. I literally had to reschedule this meeting, I think like 4 times, just with everything going on in my schedule and also what felt good for me. I really wanted to do it last week when we were on break, but I couldn't. So executing with excellence. And that really is going to come from you and the team culture that you have. And I've tried to do a few things to call us in on that so that we're executing with excellence. And remember that looks different for different people. And so that's where communication comes in at. Sometimes people have never had to execute with excellence, and so they don't know what that looks like. And so it's always good to have conversations around, well, how do you execute? Well, what does that look like for you? And I think a lot of times, at least in my experience, it was only negative that teams talked amongst each other, mostly negative, I'll say. Um, you really didn't hear things like, well, how do you execute with excellence? You heard like, oh, I'm so sick of this. So you want to talk to your team members and find out, what does executing with excellence looks like for you? Because this is what it looks like for me. Greater purpose and greater good. And this is just being driven by a sense of greater purpose and commitment for the greater good. I know for me, seeing youth thrive, and get the exposure to, whether it's computers, robots, how to fill out and be comfortable with the FAFSA WASFA, understanding that you are literally taking out a loan money, okay? And you're going to have to pay this money back. And I love that about our program because no one explained that to me when I was going back to college. It was like, yeah, take out some loans and you can go to school. You're going to get out and have a fabulous job and everything's going to be great. And that is not how it went. So, the greater good, what is your greater good and why you're doing the work that you're doing, why you're on the team that you're on? And then calling in and calling out. This reminds me of Taylor. Embracing the practice of grace, both in calling in and calling out behaviors that align or misalign with our values. And we can look at some of our values in our team, not a contract, but just our team culture statement that we did at the beginning of the year. Approaching conflicts and disagreements with empathy, seeking to courageously address issues with compassion, respect, fostering a culture of accountability and growth for everybody involved. That was really tiny. I'm going to try to make this a little bigger. Let's see. All right, any questions before we move through this? You can also put them in the chat too. So what does it mean? You guys hear me talk about instead of bringing your whole self to work. And when I say that, I mean like my whole self is not going to ever come to work because I'm different with my family than I am at work, and there's different requirements for me at work than there is at home, and vice versa. So just a few things that I feel like help us bring our most evolved self to work. Noticing without judging is going to be really helpful on a team, because we don't have to judge everything, right? We can just notice it. Taking care of yourself and mental wellness. I think Ursula mentioned that earlier. Not taking things personally. And how do we do that? We're conscious that things can happen. Like life happens and it's going to happen on a team. I know sometimes it can be, we could be taken aback when something happens out of our norm and our flow and our comfort zone, but realizing that things can happen, and shifting your focus from me to we. It helps when you've taken something personal, but you can sit back and you can say, okay, all all of my energy is on me right now. What I'm not getting, what I'm feeling. Is there any room in there for me to shift to we? And what I can do to help we, and maybe call in someone else into what I'm feeling and why I'm taking this personal. Be aware that part of yourself that's being triggered. Is it something that you Is it something that is ringing true with you? And I think when you take things personal, at least I know for me, I have to say, okay, is any of what they're saying ringing true for me? If it is, give yourself some empathy, and instead of blaming, look for solutions. Enforcing what is already in place. This is huge for me lately. What does the handbook say, right? I don't have to create something out of nothing, but what does our employee handbook say? Already enforcing that. That takes 99.9% of the pressure off of me, because this is not my company. And a lot of times teams can get so passionate about what they're doing, but they have to remember that we also have to enforce what's already in place. Remember your toggle switch. We all have an ego and we all need to turn it off at times. And how do we do that? We have to, again, self-reflection. Am I just venting or am I looking for a solution? Am I the victim in this situation? Am I being negative? And so we have to remember that toggle switch, know when to turn it on and to turn it off. Um, and to get out of ego, self-reflection, you could do some self-reflection and ask yourself, what do I know for sure? And what could I do next to add value? And that comes from one of my mentors that I love so very much, Cy Wakeman. Be mentally flexible. A growth mindset I cannot speak enough about versus having a closed mindset. If you have a closed mindset on a team, you're going to be sad a lot of the days going home. So a growth mindset benefits you in the way of learning, personally and professionally, and being able to bring your most evolved self to work. I learn things from you all the time, and that's because I'm open to it. So being mentally flexible, professional values. I cannot stress this enough. Know what your professional values are, and you will know when you are not aligned with those professional values because you'll feel it, right? You'll know it in your knower. You'll feel upset about something, and you need to do what it takes to come back and align yourself with your professional values. And most times I will say for me, that's been an easy fix because it's a conversation that I need to have, say with Chrisanne, for example. That just does not align with me. And I need to know what we can do to help me get aligned, because if you have to have so many of those conversations, then ultimately you're going to say, well, this is not working for me. And where do I go from here? So if you don't already have professional values, sit down and write those out for yourself. Vulnerability, that equals courage. You've got to have some vulnerability on a team, right? If you're so closed off that you can't deal with anybody and anybody can't deal with you or talk to you or have communication with you, it's going to be really hard for you on that team. And you're either going to leave or people are going to say, you know what, you just don't have permission to be here anymore, because that's not how we flow or roll, right? So be mindful of your mood and how it can impact others, and be open to learning. Remember, your professionalism and likability is key. And let me say this, I know that that is not widely talked about. I'm not talking about brow nosing or sucking up. I'm talking about kindness, being clear, being authentic, being approachable, likability. I have seen a lot of people get not hired because of attitude or poor attitude, and there was just not that likability there. And so they wouldn't be a good fit. So remember that. And when you're stuck on something, notice what's happening in your body, notice what's happening going on around you. And you can ask yourself some questions. Am I working harder to be right or happy? What would great look like? If I didn't believe the story I was telling myself about this person or situation, what would I do next to help? That's really living in your higher self. And what can I do to add value? We are almost there. Any questions, comments, concerns before I play a video? Or just comments, excuse me. No? Okay. Go ahead and play the video. Excuse me. Okay, so how corny was that? All right. Before we move forward, there are 4 slides left. Would you like to buy our time back? If you can give me a thumbs up from the time that I had to walk Arifa down, or would you like to close it out here in the next 2 minutes? If you'd like to close it out, you can give me a thumbs down. If you want to power through the next 4 slides, let me know. Okay, power through, power through. I was gonna say, come on, guys, we're on a healthy teams training. Okay, all right, let's power through. So again, before we do that, any thoughts on that video? Did anything come up for you? Did you see yourself, sense yourself in any of those examples? I know I did. Yes, you can. I can absolutely send out these slides, Reza. No problem at all. Okay. All right. So for me, huge, just from my upbringing, my background, um, race, um, all of these things come into play when I came into working at corporate. And so you code switching, tone policing, you name it, all these things into play. And so I never really could find myself on that continuum of, am I, and there was really no language around it, but, am I armored or am I daring? And then the times that I was daring were just really the times that I were advocating for myself, but this language was not there. Times that I was armored, it was like, frustrated, I'm upset, but I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm just going to be passive aggressive, and, talk with other people who are being the same way on the team, and we'll form our little group and we'll show them. Yeah, that does not work out great for you or anyone else. Not if you are really looking to grow personally or professionally. And so I thought that video was apropos. Okay, sounds good, Keely. Just to kind of call in on where you are on that continuum. So armored leadership, again, looks like knowing it all. And I love this from Brene Brown. We don't have to know it all. We can embrace learning and asking the right questions in a team, not only to get the answers that we need, but to get the answers that are going to work best for our team, for our outcomes that we need, or whatever it is that we're working on, whatever project we're working on. So embracing the learning and asking the right questions. And that's been huge for me, full transparency as a manager, asking the right questions and not having to show up having all of the answer. I know I really had a fear of that as a Black woman. You got to have all the answers. You got to be strong. You can't show weakness. Until I came to a point where I said they don't even have all the answers. So I don't need to have all of the answers. And while I might say, I don't know, but let me work on that, let me get back to you, I will find that out. That aligns more with who I am. And so find that place for yourself where you can embrace learning and ask the right questions. Avoiding conflict is, again, armored leadership, but leaning into those hard conversations. And I like to say that I'm very proud of us as a team because as of late, we have had several hard conversations to lean into, but we have opened the can of worms, if you will. We have shared about where we're feeling. We have shared about how that's affecting maybe our mental or emotional wellness. We've shared about how that feels as a teammate and a team member across the board. And so I'm proud of us for leaning into those hard conversations. Perfectionism, shame, and blame. We don't have enough time to go into these, but if you can listen to Brene Brown's Daring Leadership, podcast 1 and podcast 2, she really goes into what perfectionism looks like at work, what shame looks like at work, and what blame looks like at work versus Daring Leadership, which is excellence and accountability. So if you have shame from your personal life, you're undoubtedly going to bring that into your work life. And so working on that is really going to be key to getting that out of your work style. Scarcity mindset. This is something I really had to overcome as of late because you hear all the time, oh, the youth department may not have this, or we may not have this. And I have to say, whoa, wait a minute. Although those may be the facts, I still need to operate in an abundance mindset because that's not what I want to deliver all the time to the team, right? Still want to have that abundance mindset that says, this is what we're working with. How can we resolve to get what we need out of what we have? Um, and things come in as we need them. And so I think that has a lot to do with the abundance mindset. I really love this one. Fitting in is going to be armored if you're just trying to fit in, right? My journey here, boy, oh boy, I could go on and on about that, but fitting in um, doesn't really give a great landscape for your professional growth. Now, you do have a responsibility, as we all do, of learning the culture of the organization, learning the people that you're going to be working with, understanding how systems and processes flow, but fitting in just for the sake of fitting in is probably going to be more of a hard or even miserable experience unless you're into that kind of thing versus really cultivating a culture of belonging, right? So belonging says, I am not here to fit in, but I'm here to add in. What can I bring to add into the team or the organization? 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was all about fitting in because somebody had a BMW in this house and they did that on the job, then everybody else needed to align themselves with that versus belonging and what they're adding in. Armored is reactive and daring is strategic. What can I do to be strategic in this situation versus just reactive? It has helped me tremendously to take a step back from anything that is making me feel reactive in the workplace, whether that's via email, whether that is in person, on a phone call, whatever it is, because things are going to happen and things you're going to have a sense, a feeling of being unaligned with your personal values. But taking that step back is always a great help to not only you, but to your team environment. So you really think through your emotions and really think through, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this about the team that I'm on? And how can I add value? How can I move from me to we? And then hiding information versus daring, which is transparency and information. Um, so yes, for example, if you need report or a contract. I'm huge on that. Let me get you what you need so that we can be transparent about what the outcomes are and what it is that I need as a manager versus what it is that, say, you're turning in or what you're working on. You need the same information that I need. Maybe not at all levels, but you need some of that same information. So transparency in information is and data is really important, I think, to a healthy team. We just went over this candid conversations, and I found a really good quote. The occasional bruise to your ego is a small price to pay for a team that learns constantly and outperforms the competition. Lead with compassion, backed by conviction. Be caring enough to be candid and candid enough to be clear. Just don't confuse niceness with effectiveness. As leadership sage Peter Drucker noted, successful teams embrace the truth. They don't like it necessarily all of the time, but they embrace it. And once you do this, the truth will set your team free. And again, that's Peter Drucker. Self-awareness is a team skill. And I'm going to play a video. All right. Any comments on that before we move forward? No? Okay. Well, also defines it, self-awareness, on the slide. So when I send that out, you'll also have that as well. So let's keep going. All right. This is leadership styles. 1 second here. All right. So leadership styles. The reason why this is important is because you need to know, well, first, let me back up. So about self-awareness, when you're on a team, it's good that you're self-aware, as I mentioned before, to know your strengths, to know your weaknesses, to know your triggers, so that you understand how you are moving within a team and you understand and can explain if something happens out of the norm, you are aware of that. And you can explain to the other person or whoever it is, kind of what you're going through and how you need to get to the place where everybody needs to get to. Or if you just need to have a conversation with a manager and just say, these are the things that I'm going through right now, and this is what is making it hard for me to meet a goal or outcome or whatever. This is what's happening in my life. And I think that we already have that on our team, but I think you can never cultivate that enough to have that psychological safety within a team and even in an organization, thinking bigger scale where people feel comfortable enough to say, hey, I have this going on and this is what's happening with me right now. And this is kind of, why my work is not what it's supposed to be or why it's suffering or whatever the situation is. And so that's really important. And in that, have those conversations over expecting people to look over your stuff or whatever it is that you're going through, because people can't have empathy if they really don't know what's going on with you and you're closed off, you're in that armor. They really can't help, they really can't have the empathy that they should be having if you're closed off. And so you can't expect people to look over your stuff if you're armored all of the time and you can't share those things that can help you get to your next place, your next best place, I'll say. So now into leadership style. It really is important that individuals on teams understand their leadership styles. Why? Because those leadership styles are always going to intersect. Some way, somehow, they're going to intersect. The leader that I am today is not the leader that I was a year ago. The leader that I will be a year from now is not who I am right now. But what I need to do is be present, take the time, understand my strengths, understand my challenges, where I am as a leader, taking valuable information from my team to say, okay, how can I get better? And that takes courage. And I think a manager or a leader establishes that culture, whether or not people can say, this is how I'm experiencing you, right? So I just had to do that in my yearly review. This is how I'm experiencing you. And that's okay, which is why I started out, I haven't gotten to it this year, but the management survey. How am I doing? How does it feel? How are you experiencing me? And that could be things that I need to work on. It could be things that you need to work on. But the conversation is really important to a healthy team. So your leadership style and how you intersect with other leadership styles can help you when you're aware of what your leadership style is. And a lot of times what I find, like the last when we did the bridge conference, a lot of leaders in the room didn't understand what their leadership style was. And so when they came to crossroads and intersections with staff or other leaders, there was always this crash because they couldn't have empathy for, say, for example, someone who is a servant leader versus someone who is a transactional leader, right? So some people are transactional leaders, some people are servant leaders. I am a combination, I'm finding right now, of like 2 or 3 leadership styles. So I need to be mindful of that. So when I am in, say, leadership meetings or meetings with the team, I understand where I am and how I'm moving. So I do my best not to, when I come to a crossroad with another leadership style, have that crash, right? So understanding your leadership style is essential for effectively leading or being a part of a team because people have very different personalities and backgrounds. Understanding your leadership style helps you to tailor your communication, and it builds trust and helps to make quality decisions. It blends the team cohesion and maximizes the contributions of each team member, leading to a more harmonious work environment. All right.
I think I'm just having a hard time identifying which ones. I know that I like relate to multiple. But yeah, just kind of like taking that in and being like, okay, which ones do I find myself doing more like in the classroom is what I'm trying to kind of decide for myself right now.
Yeah. Absolutely, which is why I mentioned I feel like I'm about 3 of those right now. So I'm intersecting with quite a few of those right now. Thank you, Taylor, for sharing that out. All right, so let's finish. We have definitely bought our time back, that 12 or 15 minutes, however long that was. So belonging is the last slide. And the things that I would like for us to remember as a team is about belonging is that we are taught to fit in and not to add in. So remember to add in. It's okay to add in to our team and not to have to fit in, bringing your unique genius to the table as much as you see fit. Belonging says, here's where I add in. As corporations or organizations, it's not about who fits into the culture, it's what's missing in the culture and who adds in or who is willing to add in. The science of belonging says that people have to feel rewarded, seen, recognized, and valued in order to feel like they belong. So those are the things that you're going to see on a healthy team. Belonging is less about quota of diversity and data points, but represents something much, much broader. The things that I just mentioned before, an organization can tell by a survey, are people, feeling like they're heard? Are they feeling like they're seen? Or you bring it down to the team. Are you feeling like you're heard? Are you feeling like you're seen? Are you being rewarded in some way? And then if you're not feeling those things, that's when it's time to have those candid conversations that we mentioned earlier. Belonging is a crucial component of diversity, equity, and inclusion, as it fosters an environment where individuals feel accepted, valued, and empowered to contribute their unique perspectives, ultimately driving innovation and organizational success or team success in this for this presentation. And when people feel like they belong, they're more likely to fully engage, collaborate effectively, and thrive within diverse teams, promoting a culture of equality and respect, which is the promised land, right? We all want to feel these things and feel like we spend a lot of time at work. So we want to feel like I'm respected. I am moving about in a culture of equality. My diversity is respected. And many times these things don't happen overnight. And particularly in where we are in society, many people are standing up having to scream to say, I want to feel, or I don't feel heard. I don't feel like I belong. And what I found as we get ready to close this out is having the courage to speak up little by little matters. It helps. And more than it helps the organization, it helps you to stay in alignment with who you truly are. Because the more you evolve into your best self, the better you're going to be on your team. So as we think about this presentation today, you all, I was hoping to paint a picture of what a healthy team should look like. And we do not have all of the components, but we do have some of those. And so remember this presentation. If something comes up for you that is out of alignment, or maybe you've taken something personal, or maybe something really good is happening and you want to celebrate that, think about this picture that I've tried to paint today around healthy teams and what they should be looking like, and also add into what you feel like a healthy team should look like. So I hope this helps us to move forward in a way that is strong and established, and create an environment where we can talk to each other about the things that are going on, because it's a horrible thing to spend so much time and be in a place where you spend so much time and not be able to have a voice. And so I'm going to keep doing my best to create that type of environment, and then pull back when I need to reflect. And I hope to create that environment for us all as well. So thank you for being here today. I will send out a survey. You let me know what you thought about this. If you will take the time to do that, that would be great, so that I can fine tune this a little bit. And then have a great rest of your day. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.